Sunita had always been the quiet one at work. She wasn't the type to speak up in meetings or chat loudly by the coffee machine. Most days she sat at her desk, head down, fingers dancing across her keyboard as she worked through stacks of numbers and reports. The office walls were covered with awards and photos of the sales team's successes, but Sunita's achievements lived in spreadsheets and financial statements that kept the company running smoothly behind the scenes. Her small cubicle felt like a safe space. Pictures of her family stood next to her computer, her parents smiling proudly at her college graduation, her younger brother making a silly face at the camera. A small potted plant sat in the corner, the only living thing that witnessed her, quiet dedication day after day. "Hey everyone, gather around." The loud voice of Raj, the head of marketing, cut through the usual office noise one Friday afternoon. Sunita peeked over her cubicle wall as her coworkers gathered in the open area. She hesitated, then slowly stood up and joined the outer edge of the group. "The company charity drive is coming up next month," Raj announced, his voice booming with excitement. "And this year we're doing something different, a talent show. All proceeds will go to the Children's Hospital Fund." Excited chatter broke out immediately. Priya from HR started talking about her dance routine. Dev from sales mentioned his rock band might perform. Even the usually serious boss, Mr. Sharma, smiled and hinted he might share his hidden talent. Sunita felt something stir inside her as she listened. A memory from long ago. Sitting at an old piano in her grandmother's house, small fingers struggling to reach across the keys. Years of practice after school while other kids played outside. The feeling of peace that came when she lost herself in music. "Sign-up sheet is in the break room," Raj called out as people started drifting back to their desks. "Don't be shy. Everyone has a talent." Later that afternoon, Sunita found herself standing in front of the sign-up sheet. The page was already half filled with names and talents. Priya's Bollywood dance routine, Dev's guitar solo, Amit from IT doing stand-up comedy. Her hand trembled slightly as she picked up the pen. She hadn't played in front of anyone since her grandmother passed away 7 years ago. The piano in her tiny apartment was her private joy, something she did just for herself after long days of being invisible. "You're not seriously thinking of signing up, are you?" Sunita jumped at the voice behind her. Neha from Accounts Receivable stood there with a coffee mug in hand, eyebrow raised. I was just looking," Sunita said, feeling her face grow warm. "What would you even do?" Neha laughed, not unkindly. "Budget spreadsheets as performance art?" She patted Sunita's shoulder as she walked past. "Leave the spotlight to the people who know what to do with it, honey." Sunita stood frozen, pen still in hand. Maybe Neha was right. What was she thinking? She wasn't a performer. She wasn't special or talented like the others. She was just Sunita. Quiet, reliable Sunita who no one really noticed. She was about to put the pen down when a different voice spoke up in her mind. Her grandmother's voice, warm and firm. "Never hide your light, Beta. Music is not meant to stay locked inside." Taking a deep breath, Sunita quickly wrote, "Sunita Patel, piano," on the list before she could change her mind. Her handwriting looked small and uncertain next to the bold scrawls of her colleagues. Word spread quickly through the office grapevine. By Monday morning, it seemed everyone had heard about her unexpected sign-up. "Piano, huh?" Dev asked, leaning against her cubicle wall. "Didn't know you played. Any good?" Before she could answer, Amit from IT walked by. "Probably just knows Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star," he joked, and Dev laughed. Throughout the week, the comments continued. Not cruel exactly, but dismissive. Disbelieving. No one could imagine quiet Sunita having any notable talent. Mr. Sharma even stopped by her desk, concern on his face. "Sunita, you know there's no pressure to participate," he said kindly. "We all contribute to charity in different ways. Some people perform, others," he gestured to her computer, "do what they're good at." Each comment chipped away at her confidence. Each night she went home and sat at her piano, fingers hovering over the keys. The piece she'd chosen, a complex classical composition she'd been perfecting for years, suddenly seemed impossibly difficult. Who was she fooling? They were right. She should stick to what she knew. On Thursday, she decided to remove her name from the list. Better to back out now than face embarrassment. On stage, she walked to the break room during lunch when few people would be around. But as she stood in front of the sign-up sheet, pen in hand, ready to cross out her name, she noticed something. A new addition at the bottom of the page. Rohan. Accounting. Intern. Magic tricks. Rohan was even newer and quieter than she was. Just a college kid trying to learn the ropes. She'd seen him eating lunch alone, had smiled at him once or twice. As if summoned by her thoughts, Rohan walked into the break room. He stopped when he saw her standing by the sign-up sheet. "Oh, sorry," he said, turning to leave. "Wait," Sunita called out, surprising herself. "You're doing magic tricks?" Rohan nodded, his face flushing. "I'm not very good yet, but my little cousin loves when I perform, so..." He shrugged. "Probably silly." Sunita looked at this young man, nervous but brave enough to try anyway. Then she looked down at the pen in her hand, the pen she'd been about to use to give up. "I'm doing piano," she said. "Everyone thinks I'll be terrible." Rohan smiled slightly. "Will you be?" The unexpected question made her pause. Would she be terrible? No. She might be nervous, might make mistakes, but terrible. No. The music lived in her fingers, in her heart. It always had. "No," she said finally. "I won't be terrible." "Then who cares what they think," Rohan said with a shrug. "I might mess up every trick, but at least I'll try. Better than wondering what if, right?" Sunita put the pen down without crossing out her name. Something had shifted inside her. The voices of doubt, both others and her own, seemed less important suddenly. That night she played with a new determination. The talent show was just 10 days away. People might laugh, they might be shocked. But for a few minutes on that stage, she would finally be seen. Not as quiet Sunita from accounting, but as who she really was underneath all the spreadsheets and silence. And that, she decided as her fingers flew across the keys, would be worth all the nervous nights ahead. The weekend after her talk with Rohan, Sunita woke up early. Outside her window, the morning sun painted the small balcony of her apartment in soft golden light. Her two-bedroom flat wasn't much, but it was hers, the first place she'd ever lived completely on her own. She made herself a cup of chai and walked to the corner of her living room where her piano stood. It wasn't fancy or new, a second-hand upright her parents had helped her buy when she got her first job. The wood was scratched in places and one of the pedals squeaked if you pressed too hard. But the sound was perfect. Sunita ran her fingers lightly over the keys without pressing them. The piece she'd chosen for the talent show was one her grandmother had loved. Complex, but beautiful. Challenging, but familiar. Her fingers knew every note by heart. She thought about her grandmother, Dadi, who first taught her to play when she was just 7 years old. Dadi's hands had been small like hers, but somehow they seemed to stretch across the keys like magic. "Music is a language of its own," Dadi used to say. "When words fail, music speaks." Sunita sat down and began to play. Slowly at first, then faster as the music took over. This was her real voice, the one her coworkers had never heard. The melody filled her small apartment, bouncing off the walls, wrapping around her like an old friend. In the middle of the piece, her phone rang. Sunita jumped, hitting a wrong note, the spell broken. It was her mother. "Beta, how are you? Your father and I were wondering if you're coming for dinner tomorrow." Sunita smiled, tucking the phone between her ear and shoulder. "Yes, Ma, I'll be there." Good. I'm making your favorite dal." "Oh, and Auntie Meena will be there with her son Vikram. You remember him? Such a nice boy, works at a bank now, very stable job." Sunita held back a sigh. Another setup. Her mother meant well, but these family dinners with suitable boys had become a regular occurrence since she turned 30 last year. "Ma, I have something to tell you," Sunita said, changing the subject. I'm performing in a talent show at work. There was a pause. Playing piano? In front of people? Yes. Oh, but Beta, you haven't performed since… Her mother didn't finish the sentence. They both remembered. Sunita's last recital had been at her grandmother's funeral, a private goodbye that had left everyone in tears. I know, Sunita said quietly, but I think it's time. Your daddy would be so proud, her mother said, voice warm with emotion. Will you play her favorite? Yes. Then you must practice. Go, I won't keep you. We'll talk about it tomorrow at dinner. After hanging up, Sunita smiled. That was her mother, always practical, always supportive in her own way. She turned back to the piano with renewed determination. The talent show was now just 9 days away. Monday morning arrived with gray skies and a light drizzle. Sunita hurried into the office building, shaking water from her umbrella. As she stepped into the elevator, she found herself face to face with Priya from HR. Good morning, Priya said cheerfully. Ready for your big debut next week? Sunita managed a small smile. Working on it. I didn't know you played piano, Priya continued. Have you been playing long? Since I was a child, Sunita replied. The elevator stopped at the 3rd floor and more people got on. Sunita could feel curious eyes on her. The quiet accountant who suddenly signed up for the talent show had become an object of interest and skepticism. As the doors opened at their floor, Sunita heard someone whisper, $10 says she backs out before the show. The comment stung, but Sunita kept her head high as she walked to her desk. Let them think what they wanted. They didn't know her, not really. The week crawled by. During lunch break, Sunita would slip away to a quiet conference room with her headphones, closing her eyes and mentally practicing her piece, fingers tapping silently on the table. A few times, she caught people watching her with amused expressions. Once, she overheard Amit telling a joke about her imaginary piano. At home each night, she practiced until her fingers ached. Sometimes she played perfectly, losing herself in the music. Other times, anxiety would creep in, making her stumble over notes she'd known for years. On Wednesday, Rohan stopped by her desk. How's the practice going? He asked quietly. Good days and bad days, Sunita admitted. You? Rohan grinned sheepishly. Dropped my cards twice this morning. My roommate said I should stick to calculator tricks. They shared a laugh, and Sunita felt a small weight lift from her shoulders. At least she wasn't the only one feeling the pressure. Have you ever performed before? She asked. Rohan shook his head. Just for family and friends. You? Not for many years, Sunita said. I used to play in school competitions, then in college a little bit, but not since then. What made you stop? Rohan asked. The question caught her off guard. No one at work had ever asked her anything so personal before. My grandmother died, she said simply. She was the one who taught me. After she was gone, it felt, I don't know, private, I guess. Something just for me. Rohan nodded like he understood. So why now? Why the talent show? Sunita thought for a moment. Because I'm tired of being invisible, she finally said. There's more to me than spreadsheets and quarterly reports. I want people to see that. Just once. I see it, Rohan said with a small smile. Then, looking embarrassed by his own words, he quickly added, Anyway, I should get back to work. Good luck with practice. Friday evening, 3 days before the show, disaster struck. Sunita came home to find a notice taped to her apartment door. Building maintenance would be turning off water to her floor for repairs on Saturday and Sunday. She'd have to stay somewhere else for the weekend, her most important practice days. Panic rose in her chest as she called her parents. Their spare room was being painted. Her brother had friends visiting from out of town. Finally, after several frantic calls, her cousin Deepa offered her couch. It was kind, but Deepa had 2 small children and lived in a tiny apartment. There would be no piano, no quiet space to focus. As Sunita packed an overnight bag, her hands trembled slightly. This was a sign, wasn't it? The universe telling her she was making a mistake. Maybe she should just back out now before she embarrassed herself in front of everyone. She sat on the edge of her bed, defeated. Then her eyes fell on a framed photo on her nightstand, her grandmother smiling, one arm around a 12-year-old Sunita who sat at the piano, beaming with pride after her first big recital. Never hide your light, Beta. Sunita took a deep breath and reached for her phone. She couldn't practice on her piano this weekend, but that didn't mean she couldn't practice at all. Where there's a will, there's a way. And Sunita Patel had finally found her will. Monday morning arrived. The talent show was now just one day away. Sunita stepped into the office with dark circles under her eyes. The weekend at her cousin Deepa's had been chaotic. 2 energetic children running around, the television blaring cartoons and constant cooking smells from the tiny kitchen. Sleep had been scarce on Deepa's lumpy sofa, but Sunita had managed to practice. After the children went to bed, she'd sit on the edge of the sofa, eyes closed, hands moving through the air as she played an invisible piano. When Deepa asked what she was doing, Sunita had shown her a piano app on her phone. I downloaded this, she explained. Not the same as a real piano, but better than nothing. Each night after everyone was asleep, she would put in earphones and play the virtual keys for hours. The tinny sound a poor substitute for her beloved piano, but enough to keep the music alive in her fingers. As she settled at her desk, Raj, from marketing, walked by with a clipboard. Ah, Sunita, just the person I was looking for. He tapped his clipboard. Final confirmation for tomorrow. You're still in, right? Piano? For a split second, doubt clouded her mind. Was she really going to do this after a weekend with barely any proper practice? Yes, she heard herself say. I'm still in. Raj looked slightly surprised, as if he'd expected her to back out. Great. You're on right after Dev's guitar solo and before Mr. Sharma's, surprise act. He winked. Don't be late. We start at 6 p.m. sharp in the company auditorium. As Raj walked away, Sunita felt eyes on her. Neha and 2 other women from accounts receivable were watching her, whispering behind their hands. When they noticed her looking, they quickly turned away. The day crawled by in a fog of spreadsheets and nervous thoughts. During her lunch break, Sunita found a quiet corner of the cafeteria and closed her eyes, mentally running through her piece one more time. Mind if I join you? She opened her eyes to see Rohan standing there with a lunch tray. Of course, she nodded. They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes before Rohan spoke. Nervous about tomorrow? Sunita nodded. You? Terrified, he admitted with a small laugh. I dropped a whole deck of cards in the shower this morning. My roommate thought I was having some kind of breakdown. The image made Sunita laugh, releasing some of the tension she'd been carrying. I had to stay at my cousin's this weekend, she confided. No piano, just practiced on my phone. Rohan looked thoughtful. You know, there's a piano in the recreation room on the 15th floor. Old one that used to be in the reception area before they redecorated. Sunita nearly choked on her tea. There's a piano here? In the building? Rohan nodded. Nobody uses it. The recreation room is mostly for executives, but it's empty after hours. Security doesn't mind if people go up there. I've used it to study, when my roommate has friends over. Hope fluttered in Sunita's chest. A real piano. Today. Thank you, she said with feeling. Really, thank you. After everyone had left for the day, Sunita took the elevator to the 15th floor. The recreation room was unlocked, as Rohan had said. Plush couches, a small kitchen area, a ping-pong table, and there, by the window overlooking the city, an upright piano. It was old, its black paint chipped in places, but when Sunita pressed, a key. The sound was rich and in tune. She sat down, adjusted the bench, and began to play. At first, her fingers were stiff with nerves. Wrong notes jarred her ears. But gradually, As the familiar melody took shape, she relaxed. The music flowed from her fingers as naturally as breathing. With each phrase, each perfect crescendo, confidence bloomed inside her. Lost in the music, she didn't notice the door opening behind her. Well, I'll be damned. Sunita's hands froze on the keys. She turned to find Mr. Sharma standing in the doorway, briefcase in hand, looking at her with wide eyes. "Sir, I'm sorry," she stammered, rising quickly from the bench. "Rohan mentioned there was a piano here, and I needed to practice for tomorrow. I should have asked permission." Mr. Sharma held up a hand, stopping her apology. "Please, continue. I just forgot something in my office and heard music." He hesitated, then added, "That was beautiful. What piece is it?" "Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major," Sunita replied, surprised by his interest. "My grandmother taught it to me." Mr. Sharma nodded slowly. "My late wife played piano. Not like that, but she loved Chopin." There was a softness in his voice Sunita had never heard before. "Please don't let me interrupt. I just need to grab something from my office." When he left, Sunita sat back down at the piano, a strange feeling washing over her. Mr. Sharma, strict, business-focused Mr. Sharma, had a wife who played piano. He recognized Chopin. There were depths to people she worked with every day that she knew nothing about. Just as there were depths to her that they knew nothing about. She played for another hour, feeling more ready with each passing minute. When she finally left the building, the night guard gave her a friendly nod. "Sounded real nice, miss." Tuesday morning dawned bright and clear, the day of the talent show. Sunita had barely slept, but it didn't matter. She felt ready. The office buzzed with excitement. People discussed what to wear. Last-minute rehearsals happened in break rooms, and someone from facilities was setting up chairs in the auditorium. Priya from HR stopped by Sunita's desk. "Excited for tonight?" "Yes," Sunita replied, surprised to find she meant it. The fear was still there, but excitement had joined it. Two sides of the same coin. "What are you going to wear?" Priya asked. Sunita hadn't even thought about it. "I don't know. Just regular clothes, I guess." Priya shook her head. "Oh no, honey, this is your moment. You need to look the part." She studied Sunita thoughtfully. "You know what? I have a beautiful blue scarf that would look amazing with your complexion. I'll bring it for you." By lunchtime, word had somehow spread that Sunita could actually play. Perhaps Mr. Sharma had mentioned it, or maybe the night guard had told someone. Whatever the reason, the whispers had changed. No longer mocking, they were curious, speculative. "I heard she was practicing last night in the executive lounge. Mr. Sharma said she's really good." "No way." Quiet Sunita from accounting. As the workday ended and people began to prepare for the evening's event, Rohan passed by Sunita's desk. "Ready for tonight?" he asked. Sunita took a deep breath and nodded. "Thanks to you. That piano was exactly what I needed." "Break a leg," he said with a smile. "Or maybe don't break anything, actually. Just play amazing." "You too," she replied, "with your magic tricks. Not the breaking part." They shared a nervous laugh, two unlikely performers about to step into the spotlight. The hour approached. It was almost time. The company auditorium wasn't fancy, just a large room with rows of chairs and a small stage at one end. But tonight, with the lights dimmed and a spotlight shining on the stage, it felt like a real concert hall. By 6 o'clock, nearly every seat was filled. Employees chatted excitedly, some holding paper cups of chai from the canteen, others checking the program handouts that listed all the performers. Backstage, really just a small area behind a curtain, Sunita peeked through a gap at the audience. Her heart hammered against her ribs. So many people, far more than she'd expected. Not just colleagues, but their families too. Even the company's biggest client had sent representatives. She smoothed down her best dark blue salwar kameez, touching the borrowed scarf Priya had draped artfully around her shoulders. "It brings out your eyes," Priya had said, helping her adjust it in the ladies' room just minutes earlier. Rohan stood nearby, nervously shuffling his deck of cards. "Have you seen how full it is out there?" he whispered, his voice cracking slightly. Sunita nodded, unable to speak. The nervousness that had been building all day was reaching its peak. Her hands felt cold. What if she froze on stage? What if she forgot the notes she'd played 1,000 times? Raj stepped into the backstage area, looking important with his clipboard. "All right, everyone, first act in 5 minutes. Remember your order, and for goodness sake, try to enjoy yourselves." The first few acts passed in a blur. Amit's stand-up comedy had everyone laughing. A group of interns performed a dance that earned enthusiastic applause. Mr. Patel from legal played a flute so beautifully that Sunita momentarily forgot her own nerves. Then came Dev with his guitar. Standing in the wings, Sunita watched him confidently strum and sing, the audience clapping along. This was the man everyone expected to win. As his final notes faded, the room erupted in cheers. "Thank you," Dev grinned, taking a theatrical bow. "And now," he said into the microphone, "I believe we have Sunita from accounting. Let's see what our number cruncher can do." There was polite applause mixed with a few chuckles. Dev stepped off the stage, giving Sunita a friendly but slightly patronizing pat on the shoulder as he passed her. "All yours, piano girl." Sunita took a deep breath and stepped onto the stage. The spotlight felt hot and blinding. Through the glare, she could just make out faces in the front row. Neha whispering to her friend, Mr. Sharma sitting with perfect posture, and a few others. She recognized. The piano waited at the center of the stage, not her familiar one from home, or even the old one from the executive lounge, but a grand piano the company had rented specially for the talent show. Its polished black surface gleamed under the lights, intimidating in its perfection. Sunita walked toward it, her legs feeling like they belonged to someone else. Just 5 steps, but they seemed to take forever. She could feel every eye in the room on her, hear the rustle of program papers, a few coughs. Someone's whispered, "This should be interesting." Sitting down at the bench, she adjusted it slightly, buying time, trying to calm her racing heart. The keys before her blurred as tears of nervousness threatened. She blinked them away, positioning her hands. One last breath. Then her fingers touched the keys. The first notes of Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major filled the room, and something magical happened. The moment the music began, the audience disappeared. The nerves vanished. There was only Sunita and the piano, just as it had always been in her apartment, in her grandmother's house, in all the private moments when music had been her true voice. Her fingers moved with confidence and grace, coaxing, notes that floated like silk through the air. The melody rose and fell, telling a story of longing, of beauty found in quiet moments, of a soul far deeper than anyone had guessed. In the front row, Mr. Sharma closed his eyes, memories washing over his face. Neha sat frozen, her gossip forgotten. Even Dev, standing at the back, had stopped chatting with his friends to listen. Sunita didn't see any of this. She was lost in the music, swaying slightly as her hands danced across the keys. This piece that had been her companion through lonely evenings, her comfort in hard times, was now her voice speaking to a room full of people who had never truly heard her before. As the melody reached its most emotional passage, someone in the audience let out an audible gasp. The sound briefly pulled Sunita back to awareness of where she was, who was listening. For a split second, her fingers hesitated above the keys, but then she caught sight of something small on the edge of the piano, a folded paper crane that hadn't been there before. Rohan must have placed it there while she was lost in playing. A tiny gesture of support. With renewed confidence, Sunita dove back into the music, hands flying across the keys with even more passion than before. The delicate trills, the powerful chords, the gentle ending notes, each one perfect, each one true. As the final note hung in the air, time seemed suspended. Sunita sat still, hands hovering above the keys, eyes closed, heart full. Then came the silence. Complete, absolute silence. Slowly she opened her eyes, reality rushing back. The stage, the audience, All those people staring at her with wide eyes and open mouths. Had she done that badly? Why wasn't anyone making a sound? She stood up shakily, wondering if she should just hurry off stage, when Mr. Sharma rose from his seat. He brought his hands together in applause. Once, twice, the sound sharp and clear in the quiet room. Then Rohan joined in from the wings. Then Priya. Then the entire front row. Suddenly, the whole room was on its feet, applause thundering around her. She heard someone whistle, someone else shouting, "Bravo!" People she'd worked beside for years were looking at her with astonishment, with admiration, with a completely new understanding. Sunita stood there, hands clasped together, unable to stop the smile that spread across her face, or the tears that filled her eyes. These weren't tears of nervousness or fear. They were tears of joy, of release, of being truly seen for the first time. As she took a small, shy bow, she caught Rohan's eye off stage. He was beaming at her, hands clapping furiously, pure delight written across his face. His paper crane still sat on the edge of the piano, a small, perfect thing like the moment she had just created. Walking off stage on trembling legs, Sunita felt different, lighter somehow, as if she'd set down a heavy burden she'd been carrying for years. She wasn't just quiet Sunita from accounting anymore. She was Sunita the pianist, Sunita, who had a voice. For the rest of the talent show, Sunita sat in the back row, still dazed by what had happened. People kept turning to look at her, smiling or nodding with newfound respect. A few even came over during breaks to tell her how amazing she'd been. "I had no idea," Neha said, shaking her head with genuine amazement. "You're so different up there." Sunita just smiled, not trusting herself to speak. The emotions were still too raw, too overwhelming. Rohan performed his magic tricks next. He fumbled a card once, but covered it with such charming humor that the audience laughed with him, not at him. When he successfully made a coin teleport from his hand to a volunteer's pocket, the applause was enthusiastic. Last came Mr. Sharma's surprise act, singing a classic old Bollywood song that had everyone clapping along. Who knew their stern boss had such a rich, warm voice? At the end of the night, Raj took the stage again. "What an incredible show. Let's thank all our talented performers once more." The audience applauded as all the participants joined him on stage. "And now," Raj continued, "the moment you've all been waiting for. The judges have made their decision for the winner of our first annual talent show." Sunita held her breath. She hadn't even thought about winning. Just performing had been enough. But now, standing here with the others, she couldn't help but feel a flutter of hope. "And the winner is..." A dramatic pause. Sunita Patel for her breathtaking piano performance. The room erupted. Someone started chanting her name. Sunita stood frozen until Rohan gave her a gentle nudge forward. Walking to center stage, she accepted the small trophy from Raj, a golden musical note on a wooden base. "Would you like to say a few words?" Raj asked, holding the microphone out to her. Sunita stared at it in panic. Playing piano was one thing, but speaking in front of everyone? Taking a deep breath, she leaned toward the microphone. "Thank you," she said softly. Then, gathering courage, she added, "My grandmother taught me to play. She always said music speaks when words fail. I guess that's what I was trying to do tonight. Speak through music." Her simple words seemed to touch people. She saw nods, soft smiles, even a few damp eyes. "Also," she added, surprising herself with this sudden boldness, "thank you to Rohan for showing me where to practice and to everyone who believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself." The following Monday, things at the office were different. As Sunita walked to her desk, people greeted her by name, people who had never noticed her before. Her small trophy sat proudly beside her computer, catching the morning light. Just before lunch, Mr. Sharma called her into his office. Sunita went nervously, clutching her notepad, assuming it was about the quarterly report. "Sit down, Sunita," he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. "This isn't about work. Well, not entirely." He folded his hands on the desk. Your performance the other night reminded me of something important, something I've forgotten in the years since my wife passed away. Sunita sat quietly, surprised by this personal turn. She loved music just as you do. She believed businesses need art as much as they need numbers. A small smile crossed his usually serious face. The company is hosting a charity gala next month for our biggest clients. We usually hire musicians, but I was wondering if you would consider performing. Sunita's eyes widened. Me? At the gala? Mr. Sharma nodded. 2 pieces of your choice. We would pay you, of course, the same as we would professional musicians. I'd be honored, Sunita said, happiness bubbling up inside her. Excellent. Mr. Sharma hesitated, then added, And Sunita, I've been thinking. We've been so focused on marketing and sales that we've neglected the cultural side of our company. I'm considering starting a small cultural committee, music, art, perhaps some community outreach. Would you be interested in being part of it? By the time Sunita left his office, she felt like she was floating. Not only would she be playing at the gala, but she would also be helping to bring more music and art into the workplace. It was like a dream. As weeks passed, subtle changes continued. Sunita still did her accounting work with the same quiet efficiency, but she no longer felt invisible. People sought her out for lunch, asked her opinion in meetings, treated her as someone with valuable contributions beyond spreadsheets. The biggest change, though, was in Sunita herself. She stood taller, spoke more confidently, even changed her hairstyle to something a bit more stylish. The woman who had been hiding behind her desk was slowly emerging into the light. One evening, as she was preparing to leave, Rohan stopped by her desk. A few of us are going for dinner. Want to join? In the past, Sunita would have made an excuse and hurried home to her piano. But now she smiled and reached for her coat. I'd like that. As they walked out together, Rohan said casually, I've been meaning to ask. There's a small concert at the community center this weekend. A jazz quartet. Not Chopin, but still good music. Would you want to go? Together, I mean. Sunita felt a warm flutter in her chest. I'd like that too, she said softly. That weekend, she went to both the concert with Rohan and her regular Sunday dinner with her parents. When Auntie Meena predictably asked if she was seeing anyone, Sunita surprised everyone, including herself, by saying, Actually, I've just started seeing someone from work. He's very nice. Her mother's delighted expression made Sunita laugh. Don't start planning the wedding yet, Ma. We're just getting to know each other. The biggest surprise came the following month, after her performance at the company gala. A woman approached her, elegant in an expensive silk sari. That was lovely, my dear. I'm Kavita Rao. Sunita recognized the name immediately. Mrs. Rao owned one of the city's most prestigious music schools. I teach advanced piano to serious students, just a few each year, Mrs. Rao continued. I'd like you to consider teaching beginners at my school on weekends. Your technical skill is excellent, but more importantly, you play with genuine emotion. That's something many teachers lack. Driving home that night, Sunita couldn't stop smiling. The quiet accountant now had a budding romance, a new role bringing culture to her workplace, and a weekend teaching position sharing her love of music with children. As she parked outside her apartment building, she looked up at the night sky, thinking of her grandmother. You were right, Duddy, she whispered. I shouldn't have hidden my light. Unlocking her door, Sunita went straight to her piano. The worn keys welcomed her home as she began to play. Not Chopin this time, but something new. A composition of her own that had been forming in her mind. The melody spoke of transformation, of finding courage, of becoming who you were always meant to be. It was Sunita's story, told in the language she now knew the world was ready to hear. Sometimes the biggest journeys begin with the smallest steps. For Sunita, it had begun with signing her name on a talent show list, despite the laughter, despite the doubt. One brave moment had changed everything, and somewhere she was certain her grandmother was smiling.